Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Bonte, and welcome to day 9 of our 14-day Buddhist practice. And Bonte's going to lead us off with the 5 remembrances as we do every day.
Thank you, Alan. So once again, I'm going to ring the bell and then I'll be reciting the 5 remembrances. I am subject to aging. There is no way to avoid aging. I am subject to ill health. There is no way to avoid illness. I am going to die. There is no way to avoid death. Everyone and everything that I love will change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My only true possessions are my actions. I cannot escape their consequences. All right, Alan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Bonte. And once again, welcome to day 9. Today is entitled Entering the Market. So let me start off with the scripture reading. Bare-chested, barefooted, he comes into the marketplace, muddied and dust-covered. How broadly he grins. Without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he swiftly brings to bloom. So what we're talking about today is coming from basically the Mahayana branch of Buddhism, specifically Zen and Chan. And so it's called the 10 ox herding pictures, or the 10 bulls is basically what we're talking about. This is the last part of it. And I found it kind of fitting for what we're going on with right now with the pandemic. So the entire purpose of the 10 ox herding pictures is basically the practitioner, essentially, being able to discover their mind, control the mind, and essentially conquer the craziness of our minds, the deluded nature of our minds. And so the mind is represented by the bull inside these particular pictures. And so, as regular everyday laypersons, it'd be very challenging to try to get through all 10 of these, in a lifetime. But it shows us kind of like the progression that we actually make. Now, this last one, entering the market, it's basically this awakened or enlightened practitioner who is able to, they're awakened, they're enlightened, but they're not, sitting on a mountain somewhere and just meditating all day. They're going back into the market, into daily life, but not daily life like as a layperson, but they're going into the market. And what's kind of fun and unusual about this particular one, they're doing things that we would not expect of an enlightened person. They're going, into bars and stuff like that, which would be unthinkable. But they're not going in there just to drink and be happy and stuff like that. They're awakened, so they're there to essentially share their wisdom with others, and they're not affected by all these vices and everything else that's kind of going around them. So I found it kind of fitting for the current pandemic. There's, if you want to think about it, what is your market right now? Not just going into quote unquote the market like a grocery store or a department store or something like that, but just your life. If you're at home and you're, quarantined, secluded, or whatever the case might be, what does your market look like? Is there a sick family member? Are you unemployed? When you do go out into the real world, and you actually go into these markets, right? How are you interacting when you go inside there? So I will make an assumption that nobody's enlightened on these particular, Zoom meetings here, but we're not. And so when you go out there, kind of think about a few things you can actually do. So try to go in there with the mindset of like, what would a Buddha do? What would one of his enlightened disciples do? What would a Bodhisattva do in these particular situations? Don't worry about being 100%. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, but kind of go in there with, this wholesome mindset when you go inside these particular situations. And that's kind of like what you guys kind of focus on, as a practice starting today. We're going in, we're being mindful. Mindfulness is kind of like a key theme for our entire practice, but we're going in with this, correct mindset into these particular markets. And we're doing a great thing with our daily practice. So we're doing the 5 remembrances, which is basically us confronting our fears, and being able to transform those fears. And then the Noble Eightfold Path, is essentially like this cloak, this armor that we're using as we go into the world. It's the right, that's why there's right after each one of them. It's the right path to take. And that helps us make our wheel perfectly round as we kind of go into this world, a perfect, encounters that we're going to have out there in the world. So kind of think about that as far as your daily practice. Like, what is your market? Might be kind of like a thought for you. Like, what is my market at home? What is my market when I go out and stuff like that? And be aware of like all the different challenges that you are experiencing or may experience, and what basically Mara is trying to do to you, what the fears are trying to do to you, the delusion that you're seeing, etc. Bhante, do you want to add anything to this?
Yes, thank you, Alan. So I think it's important to remember that all the awakened beings didn't just, stay in the forest or in the mountains. Uh, the Buddha every day walked into town to get his alms food. So every day he had to interact with people. We think about the Buddha secluded, and but that was actually one of the incorrect practices that he said, the ascetic practice. And he actually created the Sangha to be a social organization, right? Um, so when we look at the life of the Buddha, we see the Buddha, he went to eat at the palace with the kings and he had the best food in the world. And then other days, he went to where the lepers were at and they would feed him whatever, we would call it gruel, leftover food that those very sick people had. And so the Buddha was meeting people everywhere at all places. He tried to stop a war from happening by sitting silently in the middle of the crossroads. The Buddha helped resolve a water dispute between two kingdoms. So we can see this as you know being able to maintain that serenity of mind while still being engaged in the world. The Buddha advocated for nonviolence everywhere he went. Buddha advocated for human equality. The Buddha advocated against killing animals, and the Buddha advocated against also for many different things. So the Buddha was very much involved in many of the things, but without being consumed by them, without being tainted by them, without becoming angry, without becoming boastful either. And the Buddha he had a they built a nice little like a spa for him, where all these fragrant smells, and we think, oh, why would the Buddha enjoy such a luxurious thing? Well, he had no attachment to them either, right? So we have to remember that we can go around living our daily lives though. You can still go to work, you can raise your children. The important thing is, how are you interacting? How are you responding, right? Look at your mind when you're doing all these things. Is there any greed, hatred, or confusion? Um, i- are you interacting in such a way where you're mindful of everything that you're doing? Are you interacting in such a way where there's wholesome states in your mind at all times? So that's really what the importance of this is about the ox herder example at the end, is that you can still be part of the world, not in the same way, obviously, but you can still be part of it in a different way. Um, the Buddha gave the example of being the light in the darkness for those who have eyes to see. So I think this is also a very important example, where the Buddha is inviting us to go out into the world and be an example for others, right? And also for those who have eyes to see, that means for those who are willing to learn. So we also don't try to force, our lifestyle or Buddhism on others. If they don't have eyes to see, then there's nothing we can do. But for those few that do have eyes to see, who have vision, well, we can be an example for them. But if we hide off, if we retreat from the world, then there's no hope for them because there's no example. And we know how important it is, especially for young people, to have good role models, to have mentors, to have examples. I mean, there's whole industries that make their money off of influencing children, right? Social influencers and TV. So um, we should also try to do the same thing, but for from a wholesome perspective. So this is really an invitation to, maybe in the beginning you do have to seclude yourself just because your mind's not ready yet. But once you do reach a certain level of practice, then the Buddha invites us to go back into the world and be an example and share the teachings with others. And so that's how I really take. I mean, I wish we would have had a picture of all the ox herding ones. And now that I thought about it, it's really nice. But you can Google it. It's a um, very beautiful picture. Is there anything else, Alan?
Yeah, I like the example that you gave of the alms rounds. And so a lot of times in our modern world, one image we have like of Buddhist monks is, especially in Theravada, is, their alms rounds. They're going out there, right? And there was an absolute purpose for that. It's so that the monks and nuns were not secluded just, inside their monastery. They were out there interacting with the laypersons, basically. And so it was a profound practice, really, for both the monastics and the laypersons that
Mhm.
contributed. It was very, very, very important, and especially like was the Buddha exactly. He was always, engaged, if you will. He was always out there, but never in a way that deviated from his teachings or the path. So I think that's perfect. Yeah, it's so important to actually be engaged, be out there in the world. And sometimes we don't think about it, but you're absolutely right too. We don't want to, push our beliefs, you just got to show that by your actions.
Mhm. Yeah, and as you said, showing it by your actions really brings it back to the five remembrances, right? All we have is our actions. So, I mean, that ties in very nicely. And then I like the little quote that's in here that says, "What would the Buddha do?" Right? When in doubt, just what would the Buddha do? How would an enlightened being or bodhisattva or arahant or even stream mentor, right? Someone who's just got the first level of awakening, how would they act? And you can think of your favorite, awakened being or example from Buddhist history and think about them and be like, how would they act? Or maybe even your own teacher, right? Your own Buddhist teacher, how would they interact in this situation? Okay, so I think we can move on to the meditation now. Let's see. So today I want to bring it back to the example that we gave in the planner of how to practice meditation. So we start off by sitting with our back straight. So I invite everyone now to sit with your back straight. This is to be able to have a good posture that's going to be able to maintain your meditative practice and also to avoid drowsiness. Now you can be mindful if there's any tension in the body and relax it. And as you relax your body, your attention will automatically drift towards the breath. Then you can observe the nature of this breath. Is it long? Is it short? Is it obstructed? Is it smooth? And you can see how this breath is affecting the body. How every time that we breathe in, the body is being affected, and every time that we breathe out, the body is being affected. And we can actively, intentionally relax on each in breath and out breath. While we breathe in, we see if there's any tension and we relax it. When we breathe out, we see if there's any tension and we relax it. As you do this, you'll begin to experience some relaxation, a feeling of comfort. And when the body is relaxed, comfortable, free from tension, the mind becomes satisfied or content. Focus your attention on this physical comfort and mental contentment. And from this place of tranquility, start observing your thoughts that arise in the mind. You can also observe your mood, observe your body, your mental mood, and the thoughts that arise in your experience from a place of tranquility. Maintain attention on the breath and tranquility that arises from it. Try to remain in this state of tranquil observation of the body and mind as long as possible. So we actively relax on the in breath and out breath, looking for any tension in the body and relaxing it. Aware of our thoughts, aware of our mood, and relaxing. Letting go, observing from a place of equanimity, using the breath as our anchor. I invite you to continue this breath meditation for a few more minutes. Now that your mind is calm, body is relaxed, you can bless yourself with your calm mind. Also, by the power of this wholesome action, skillful action, may you be free from immature company, and may you have good companions until you realize Nibbana. All right. Alan, is there anything else?
Yeah, I just want to share a quick short story, fun story. And so it was a Westerner who went either to Korea or Japan, went to like a Zen, temple there, little meditation retreat. And they were so bothered by their experience. But why were they bothered? They were bothered because they heard like, this water dripping that the monks weren't fixing, this water dripping, creaking floors. It was a very unusual experience as Westerner because you're expecting like this serene, secluded, quiet place to do this deep meditation, but it was all these distractions that were actually happening around him. And so the story is actually relates to today. If you can't deal with that, then how are you going to deal with modern, the real world? And so that was part of the monks' practice. It wasn't because they weren't, keeping things up. It's like being aware of distractions and kind of like going through it is really important. So when we're talking about going into the market, that's when we get to that level, whether it's this lifetime or a future lifetime, it's nirvana. It's not a place you go to,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. It's being able to be your true self, true being in our world, and that's revolutionary. We saw it with the Buddha, we saw it with arhants, and we saw it with bodhisattvas. I mean, that is the actual path is actually existing in this real world. We're not escaping it, in
Mm-hmm.
that way. We're walking through it in this market.
Mm-hmm. Just like the lotus, right? The lotus that has risen above the water and remains untouched by the water. If you try to put some water on it, the water will slide off of it. It's like waterproof, water resistant. So, in a similar way, our mind can be like that lotus flower and rise above the world. And when touched by the world, remains unstained or uncorrupted by the world. Well, everyone, it was nice seeing you again today. And see you tomorrow. May you be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful.